with the standards in it, mostly all the things that we talked about, lots of corrections. Do you find the reference system? You know, we talked about references.
Yes,
Did you shorten that up?
I haven't done anything to it yet. I mean, I was looking at it today.
I mean, because the references I just felt were
Oh,
internal.
yeah, most of that's going. There's no real reason to have our own description of the references in there.
Right, because the references are already referenced. It says like go to this ANSI standard or this ISO standard or whatever, so I don't really need to recite the standard.
No, we don't need a description of the standards in there,
Right.
not really.
And some of them were, like I said, they ended up trying to have the definitions. One of the problems was with the way it was written before, you have standards, you know, and then it's buried in the standards are even more definitions, you know, and it's just, right, it just gets to be difficult. And then people, it's just confusing to try to read and figure out, well, what standard is supposed, what definition for this word are you supposed to go by?
Well, the worst problem with some of it was just verbiage to try to explain to people that aren't familiar with what the standard is.
And some of these standards cost money too. I mean, they cost like $100 just to get a copy of the standard, or more.
In some cases, a couple of them I looked at, it was like $3.95. Put your credit card in online and you can download your.
Right. Well, like I looked up. There's on this standard here, this NZS 6808/2010. This thing, you know, costs $85 if you go to the, because in New Zealand, the way that they do it, the government, there's like a standards organization that sort of looks like it's some sort of a, almost like it's a quasi-government entity, and the government says use these standards by the standards organization to do it, and then you gotta go there.
When you have a free copy.
But, right, well, see, that's what I say. Or here, if you go to this FTP site, so you click on this FTP link, anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, and most of those so-called free ones end up wanting to download something into your computer. Not happening. And I don't even know then if you're gonna get it for free.
I might be blocked from FTP on this thing. It's not, you might have security settings up high, so I can't get to an FTP site from here on this computer. But anyway, it's some law site, basically. This is not opening. Let me just look at the target. Inspect element, what's that do?
Well, most of Microsoft virus settings are all on or off, so.
Yeah, so I don't know, it doesn't look like it wants to download that site. We'll see, it goes right to that one. But it doesn't like that FTP. Anyway, it's some law foundation site down in Australia or New Zealand. Okay, and basically I think in a nutshell, that what they were trying to do is, you know, they're trying to ensure that there's like their version of justice and access, so there's a way you can get it. And then all the copies are scanned in, they're not like the regular way, they're scanned copies. It just was interesting, but it took me a while to find it because clearly I wasn't going to pay $85 to read that thing. I should have gotten paid $85
Well, a
to
lot
read
of
that.
the standards say on them, copyrighted on every page.
That's what this one did. This one says it's copyrighted, but it was available on this law site, and they said that right in the standard, which was one of the reasons I was trying to open it. It said that
Making any copies or distributing.
$50,000 fine Australian.
Yes, and in many cases, the copies are actually stamped on every page with the purchaser.
Right, right. But
That's how tight they
No
are.
fair use provisions.
right. But like I said, this is on some law site. So it is FTP. So I think you can go look at it there if you really want to. It's like 100 pages or something. But anyway, that's the scoop. Tomorrow night, come prepared to talk about meeting format. And I'm working on some slides to kind of introduce people to what we did, and so I'll show those to you tomorrow night. And then also, like I said, how we want to do the meeting. Do you want to do it question and answer? Do you want to do it, have people come up and just, you know, come up and talk, and then take notes? I figured out that even lawyers are in the wrong field. So Debbie sends me an email and tells me that the stenographer, they get $200 to show, and that gets you 2 hours. And every additional hour is $100. and then it's $8.50 per page to get your stuff back. And they take about 40 pages an hour. So that works out to close to $400 an hour. So that's more than we're paying Check. So I don't know why Check's not a stenographer. But I'm just saying, because there's like almost no liability in this, okay? So if anybody's looking for a secondary profession, learn how to be a stenographer, all right? Because you can make $400 an hour being a stenographer. Just saying, I was shocked. So,
I can only work 1 hour a week.
well, yeah, well, that could be the issue. I don't know what the supply and demand part of stenography is, but I had no idea.
Uses a lot of them in proceedings.
I just had no idea that a stenographer was that expensive of a commodity, but apparently they are.
Mostly used in government.
Yeah.
Well,
The government doesn't have.
courts.
Yeah. So
Courts and hearings, and Congress uses it a lot.
Of course they do.
Well, they're probably employees though at Congress, but if you cut a
Nobody else on the congressional committee, we got
contractor,
contractors.
Holy smoke.
Man, these people make money,
well,
big money.
okay,
They're
well,
very good too.
I had no idea.
Jeff had like two.
Well, the reason they're
One
good is
for an
because they're
hour.
not actually government employees, but they still are, government's
Other
allowing them to
contractors,
charge that
contractors
much.
generally belong to a service.
So anyway, but those are the things to come up with tomorrow night. So please think them through so we can have a game plan. And what to do if 30 people show up, we probably have a little bit more freedom to have give and take and have people talk for longer periods of time. But if we have 100 people show up next week, it'd be, we need to be prepared, what our game plan is going to be, how we're going to go about comments. And so getting back to the stenographer thing is we're going to have to, I talked to Debbie, and I said that we'll probably have to have both Debbie and Kathy here taking notes. And then what will happen is we'll have the videotape, not the videotape, but the file, the data file. Now they're not tapes anymore. They'll have the data file of the video, and then work off of notes for the most part. But if there's a particular thing from a particular person that you want to hear and you don't feel like the notes captured it, then we'll have to have the ability to go through and roll the thing back and forth and get to where we want. So, just
The problem with doing the notes is they're never exact.
well,
I think we should stick with the video recording.
And what you do is also have Rick videotape as well. You have 2 copies, and that pretty well would eliminate any question as to
We have,
one missed something.
some of our troubles have come because notes weren't always, because they're always running behind what people are saying. And the notes are not exactly what was said. That's been
how many days do you want to meet the next week?
Well, like it is. Wouldn't video be? Is there a legal standard that has to be met on this?
No,
Well,
we don't have to videotape it.
I think having Rick has a camera, we have our camera.
Well, the thing is that if there's comments that you want to particularly answer, so you always throw this stuff out, Bruce, but I don't think that you have a good time calculator here. So if you take 2 or 3 hours of videotape, to sit there and listen to the entire thing again the next week, and then try to answer every single question, it takes 10, 12 hours. Or can you, if 5 people say basically the same thing, okay, then you have, because then you get, this is a discussion we can have tomorrow night, but, if you kind of look through how things are done around the country and like larger hearings, what they actually do is they say, one person gets up and says, I'm concerned because of the green squares. And the next person stands up and says, I'm concerned because of the green squares. Well, then the board usually says something like, we've already heard about the green squares, is there anybody who's concerned about the red squares? Okay, then they will cease testimony on green squares and only want to hear about red squares. And then when they hear that 2 or 3 times, then they'll say, okay, we got it about the red squares, I want to talk about purple squares. Okay, I mean that's kind of the concept. But then what ends up happening is, you might have 10 people who do want to talk about the green squares, and if only 10 people show up, maybe you should hear all 10 people talk about the green squares, whether you want to hear it or not. But if you have 100 people show up, you don't need to
That
hear
has
about.
nothing to do with the accuracy of the notes.
I'm not advocating for not videotaping. I'm just advocating for if you have a question about a particular thing, you don't think you really got the concept, then you should go backward and forward. But with the notes, if you can go through the notes and get what you need to get, and get the concepts down that you need to answer the questions, you know, you don't need to answer every single question for 20 seconds to read. You can answer because you can start to loop and group questions. So, you know, there's 5 of us or 6 of us, you know, you should be taking notes, you know, a couple notes on your own. Like if there's somebody talking about a particular thing, maybe you might want to do is write down the topic and then keep like hash marks for yourself. You'll know whether out of 15 people who speak, if 8 people say it, you'll have, you know.
Well, yeah,
You gotta
what
create
I was
a-
thinking of doing is taking note of the time,
Right, that's fine.
because then I can look at the tape at that time. Does that
Right,
make
well, that's
sense?
kind of the goal. So if you heard somebody, you could go and fast forward to that point and talk about it. That's what I just said. So they'll be taking notes, and then that'll be a way that you can get to that point. But instead of coming in the next week and laying the tape out, laying the whole thing out, you listen to the whole thing again. I mean, is that necessary?
No, I was thinking we would just skip to the facts that were.
Right, well, that's why they're Debbie have to take notes. And the other thing is it does create a record that people can skim through and read, because the other thing I don't want to do is, I don't think it's fair to say, well, the only written record we have of this at all is this is videotape. So if you want to see what happened, the only way you can get it is to go read the whole thing. And we should be able to provide, you know, a summary based on notes for the general population to read, so that the people who don't want to look at 2 hours of tape don't have to look at 2 hours of tape. And we should be balanced, so we have a variety of different mechanisms.
Well, I see your point, I just see the notes as being not all that accurate.
Well, then they can go to the tape to get the accuracy, if they have questions.
About the notifications of the hearing, is that all?
That's all, Debbie took care of all that, they're all posted.
Okay. Now, to answer your question, how many meetings next week? Depends on how it goes
Well, the
next.
following week.
Yes, depends on how it goes next week.
Well, I think that you should be prepared to sit here however many hours it takes for the meeting, and then we can go through, because don't forget there's 2 hearings, because then we still have like 6 more weeks before we have to get this out, 5 weeks. So we have plenty of time after both hearings to do it. This would be just like an interim opportunity, just to kind of gather things and make any adjustments. Meaning, because we're probably not gonna actually change much writing in the week anyway. But what we can do in the interim time, between the first hearing and the second hearing, there are some concepts that you can capture and say, well, you know, at this hearing, we had 10 people that said such and such, so we're planning on changing this to that, or, you know, whatever. This is discussion mostly for tomorrow night. So now you kind of have a little bit of a framework for the types of things that will come up tomorrow night, so maybe we can talk through them. Maybe tomorrow night I'll show the slides, and I'll try to come up with an outline of maybe a couple different scenarios that we need to consider, you know, and then we can pick from choices on how to do that stuff. Because I just want to make sure it's fair for everybody and it's reasonable.
Yeah.
All right, let's pick this stuff up. Over there. So, okay, so now I can go to this window screen, right?
What do you want to do?
I want to shut it down.
Control Alt Delete,
All right.
and then lower right will be an icon to shut it down.
Okay.
And then you have an option.
Is that a stamp on it?
Hey, this cheap power supply just didn't have a light to tell you it's on.
If it's working, it's on.
Maybe it is working.
That's right. I've seen people before that didn't know they died, and they ran the battery down to it. Hey, my computer battery.
I think that you're right. It'd be nice to have a diode on that.
Yeah, mine has one. You have to look for it, it's real small, and it's got one.
Because, Eric, I think there's not really much without changing the ordinance besides, I think there's gonna be a lot of input on the ordinance. That's it, when you about it.
All we do is hit the power off on this.
You see this?
Yeah.
Editorial.
We have another 15 hours and
Very
36 minutes
interesting.
left on this.
This just was more of the type of editorials that are out there. I think it's off.
This is still on.
You have to push the button,
Just push it.
and it makes some noise and stuff.
Wait, press the button.
You got it.
Okay, now just wait. Oh, wow, I think cool off.
Yeah, it does. Not like them old fashioned ones that the fan runs for a day or two.
Yeah, I know what they're using for a
All
dog.
set there,
But,
All right, gonna plug in?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
If it's all right, I'll go ahead and take, since we're meeting tomorrow night, right? I'll go ahead and take the equipment home because I want to mess with the
Yeah, that's
camera.
great.
And
What
See if I can-
format does is on the chip?
I'm sorry?
What format is the
Intake,
video?
MP4,
Look.
Okay, because I know like when I, oh shoot,